Oh, now it says live on YouTube on my end, on the little screen at the top.
Oh my goodness.
Yay, technology.
We are, at least it was only like just a few minutes, and I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Oh, that's okay.
All
I'm
right.
glad we figured it out before we kept going.
Yeah, well, and I wanted to give you like a natural place um to pause for a sec. Okay. All right. So here we are. We are now finally officially live on YouTube. I figured it out. I was super like, I was like, Ashley, I know what I'm doing. I'm intelligent, but apparently I am not. So,
Murphy's Law, he gets you every time.
I know. Why did I have to be like the person who's like, I can do this. I'm a doctor. I can handle this. No. Anyway, so everybody, thank you. And I'm so sorry that we're 15 minutes late. Crystal just gave a really good presentation on just to me. I had my own private one. I'm Alex Sweeney. I'm with the Latch On SA. We're doing our virtual live today, and Crystal had a nice little run through. And I told her I don't know if this is live. So we finally figured it out. And she is here. I'm going to mute myself and then just try to keep an eye on any comments or questions that might come up throughout the presentation. And then I'm sure Crystal will open it up for any questions. So I'll try to keep an eye out for anything that you guys have. And I'm really sorry that I'm late. I'm sorry, Crystal, that I screwed up. But I'm gonna let you over, Crystal.
Alrighty, well, thank you so much. Hi guys, my name is Crystal Fair. I'm one of the directors of Alamo City Babywearing. My co-director, Bethany Kane, she would have loved to have been here tonight with me, but she's at a birth, so yay babies. But a little bit about Alamo City Babywearing. We're a nonprofit organization here in San Antonio that on normal times will be hosting meetings 3 times a month, and we hope that in the future we get to resume those. When exactly that's going to happen, we're not entirely sure, but we're anxious to get back to it. Right now, we do have our Facebook community group that we use where parents and caregivers can come in and ask for recommendations on carriers, ask questions about the carriers they own, do a little bit of troubleshooting, and help everybody be comfortable and able to move about in these uncertain times in their carriers. And we highly encourage wearing baby if you ever have to take baby out in public, highly encourage wearing them. And then a little bit about myself. I've been a professional baby wearing educator for over 10 years now. I started when my oldest was born, and I jumped into the educator world pretty quickly because back in my day, we didn't have groups or anyone that we could get together with and learn how to baby wear. We had YouTube, and that was it. So I've been doing this a long time, and I'm going to talk a bit about feeding in a carrier, transitioning between positions within the carrier when we're going to feed. But I'm going to first start off with talking about a few things about basic baby wearing that we look for in terms of positioning. So I have my demo doll here. His name is Eli. He's the most quiet child of my house, and you may hear my gremlins running around. We're playing bedtime whack-a-mole tonight. So if you hear me say, I love you, good night, rest assured I'm talking to my kids. So some things we look for in baby wearing before we transition into feeding into a carrier is baby being up nice and high on the body. One of the phrases you'll hear a lot is close enough to kiss. And that's when you can look down and you could kiss the top of baby's head if you wanted to, but you can really easily see that they're comfortable, that they're breathing easily, and that everything is good. So you want to be able to look down and see baby. If they're up here, that might be a little too high because you can't see what's going on. They're right under your chin. We also don't want babies super low on the body for extended periods of time because, again, it's hard to monitor them in that position. So other things we look for is a nice supported spine in whichever carrier you choose. And ideally, knees are going to be positioned above the bum. That's going to help with the weight distribution of baby on your body and help keep baby in a really comfortable position. I typically compare this to sitting into a hammock or perching on a bar stool. One might be a little more comfortable than the other. So those are some things we look for in just basic everyday baby wearing. Now, when we talk about feeding in a carrier, we highly encourage caregivers to try this out before they go out and about. And it may be a little more difficult in the early phases when baby's really tiny and needing a little more help with positioning and latching. So give this a try at home. If it's working out well for you, that's great. Go forth and wear. If it's not working for you, try again next week. It's okay if you can't do it right away. It's perfectly normal. Everybody has to try it a few times to find their groove. It's kind of like riding a bicycle. You have to try a few times. It might not work out that first time, but once you get it, you're good to go. So, with that all said, let's jump into some baby wearing. So, I'm going to grab a ring sling as the first carrier that I'm going to use. A ring sling is just a piece of cloth with a pair of rings sewn onto it, and the cloth threads through these rings like the belts that we used to wear in the 90s and are slowly coming back into fashion where you can just tighten it or loosen it as much as you want to. So, I'm going to jump into this carrier real quick. And if you want to learn about putting on a carrier and more of a baby wearing 101, our group is a great place to do that. We're happy to link you to a lot of really fantastic tutorials. And if you need it, maybe do some one-on-one FaceTiming. And oh, bedtime whack-a-mole. Here we go. Lily Beth, good night. I know, mommy's live on Zoom and YouTube. So good night. Good night. All right. Life with 4 kids, there's always one of them running around. So I've slid myself into this ring sling and I've got it fairly snug. I can fit my elbow in here, but there's not a lot of room. The idea is to get this as situated as I can before I put baby in, so that way I have to do a lot less tightening once baby goes into the carrier. So I'm going to take my baby and I'm going to put them over my shoulder like a sack of potatoes and slide them into my carrier. Position his legs nice and comfortable. If he had knees, they would bend at this point, but he doesn't. And then I'm just going to slide this up and make sure we're nice and snug. There we go. So baby is in and caught on my shirt, little plastic hands. So this is a position that we would typically see baby in before transitioning into a feeding carry. No, excuse me, I'm so sorry. So if I wanted to transition this into a feeding carry, I'm just going to loosen my carrier a bit. So that way I can gently wiggle baby down and get them into a feeding position. So they're low enough on my body that they can easily reach, but not so low that I have to bend forward to try and bring the breast to baby. So for my comfort and support of baby's head, I'm going to tighten this top edge just a little. We want baby to be able to move their head back a little bit as they naturally would, but we don't want their head to fall back. So we want to make sure it's nice and supported, top edge up nice and high near the base of the skull, and baby at the level where they can easily reach the nipple. One of the great things about this particular carrier is I can reach in from this side to help position a little bit if I needed to. And if I needed to give baby a little extra head support, I can take a burp cloth or the tail of my ring sling and I can fold it in and give them a little bit of extra support in this feeding position. If I wanted to do more of a reclined feeding position, I can do that as well. So it's still going to remain as loose as it is right now, but I'm going to reach through, lift up baby's booty and kind of pull their booty away from my body a little bit and swing the legs over to one side. So this way, they're in more of a reclined feeding position. In this particular position, I don't typically call it hands-free. I call it more hands at the ready. So that way you can use your elbow to help support baby and position their head a little bit better. As you can see, I'm doing right here. And baby can feed in a reclined position if that's something that's more comfortable for them. I've got lots of fabric up between me and baby, so the carrier is supporting all of baby's weight, and I'm just supporting their head and helping position. So it's a really great way to feed baby if you're having to help older children with something, or if you're wanting to relax and sip a beverage or get some work done on the computer. Really easy way, because you can still maintain a good proper posture for yourself while feeding without feeling like you're having to hold baby up the whole time. It's a real good arm saver. So another great thing with this particular carrier is I can give myself some extra coverage if I'm in a position where I feel like I would like extra coverage. Only for those that feel the need to. This is not something you have to do. One thing that may be tempting is to just take the tail and completely cover baby like this. And I don't recommend that for a few reasons. One, you cannot see baby to see how well they're feeding. And if you have a slightly older baby and or kin to one of my children, if they can't see you, they bite you. So I recommend taking that tail and bringing it up over baby's face and just using it to cover the chest, but not cover baby's face. We really like to see them at all times. So when baby is done feeding, whether in the reclined position or the upright position, once they're done, I like pulling them back up to the position they started in. So I'm going to lift this doll a little bit, move the legs back into the more natural position, and retighten my ring sling. So that way I get the maximum support out of my carrier that I can. So you can see he's back up where he was before. One of the benefits of this particular carrier is I'm able to transition between all of these carries while remaining seated. As you could see, as I was doing this, I never stood up. And that's a great benefit for those that are needing to be in a seated position and not wanting to be up and moving about. So that's a really great benefit to this carrier in particular. So, all right, I'm gonna slide him out of this and we'll get ready to transition into our next carrier. Have there been any questions so far by chance?
No, we are good. People are
Awesome.
watching and no questions. I'm still learning stuff.
It was better on the second round then.
It was
Yay.
very good. Okay. All right.
All right, so now I'm gonna show you how I adjust carriers when I have a two-shouldered carrier that I'm wearing baby in and need to feed in that carrier. So right now I have a Mayday on my waist, and I'm gonna bring baby into a typical position that we would use when wearing a Mayday just out and about. So I've got two shoulder straps, and this is very similar to how most of the buckle carriers will function as well. So the tips that I give for this will apply. Just gonna tighten this up a little bit so that way everything's secure and comfortable. There we go. All right. So in this style of carrier, I typically don't recommend nursing a newborn in it just because these are not as adjustable as a ring sling or a wrap might be. So that's one thing to keep in mind. It's possible to do it. It's just easier when they're a little bit older and using this carrier. So in this style of carrier, you have the option of feeding upright. It's really difficult to try and get a cradled or reclined position to feed in this particular style of carrier. But all you have to do is, whether it's a buckle style carrier or a Mayday, you're just gonna loosen your straps a little bit. So if you have a buckle carrier, there would be buckles right here. And sometimes they're dual adjust, sometimes they adjust one direction, but your manufacturer instructions will tell you how to manipulate those buckles. You just need to loosen your straps a little bit. I've maybe given myself an inch, inch and a half, maybe 2 at most inches of slack here. And if you have a Mayday, you'll want to go ahead and retie in the back or under the bum if you prefer. That's a perfectly acceptable way of doing it. And if you have a buckle carrier, it's going to stay buckled. So from here, what I like to do is pick which side I want to feed on. It doesn't matter, you can feed on either side, but I will pick a side and I like to scoot and scoot so that my waistband rotates around my waist. The carrier body panel stays completely over the back of baby. They're still nice and secure in here, but it moves everything over to the side that I would like to feed on. Sometimes this strap likes to slide down the shoulder a little bit. That's perfectly okay. It's a hands at the ready position, not completely hands-free. And then from here, I can latch baby. If I have a sleep hood on my carrier, I can pull that up to give extra coverage if I were to feel like I needed it, or if baby's really distracted and you want to kind of bring them in and focus. Most of these carriers do have some form of a hood. Some are bigger hoods, so they'll cover up to maybe the collarbone, but you can just take one side and attach it to that strap in the way that your manufacturer recommends. And that'll help keep this hood up. So, but I've got baby shifted in a position. I can reach inside and position as I need to. Depending on the size and shape of your breast, you may need to use a burp cloth or something for a little added support in here if you don't want to be walking around with your hand inside your carrier. And then once baby's done, we can bring everything back to center and retighten our straps again. So it's quick and easy, but because we can't manipulate the size of the carrier, not the easiest with the little tiny ones. So, and there we go. I'm back in my original position. So you can note that all of these transitions from upright and normal position to a feeding carry, they're very quick and easy. So that makes it something that's really accessible to be able to do when you're out and about. As I mentioned earlier, we highly encourage baby wearing if you're going to be out and about in public with baby around this time, because never fails when you're at the grocery store. You've prepared as much as you can and a full cart of groceries, and you're waiting in line, and baby gets hungry. So these positions can easily be done while in the store or at home. So, all right. Going to go through my little mental checklist real quick. I think I've covered most everything. So, obviously, for individuals, it may look a little bit different. As I said, size and shape of the breast may make this change a little bit for you. You may need to wear baby in the same position you always wear baby for them to latch. That's perfectly fine. You don't have to lower them down if that's not necessary for you and your baby. You may need to wear baby a little bit lower. That's okay too, as long as you're able to monitor them while they're feeding and then bring them back up to the home base position, we'll call it, after they're done actively feeding. So yay. All right.
That was awesome. So I don't see any questions from anybody yet, but I have a question, not necessarily for myself, but maybe for the future for myself.
Uh-huh.
You recommend like getting a few different kinds of carriers, like have a ring sling, have a buckle, or I don't know what that one is called. Do you think we should
So yeah.
all try to have several different kinds of carriers?
It's a personal preference thing. I will say that the majority of the caregivers that I've helped, the clients that I work with, one carrier for their family is usually not where they end up. They do usually end up having a couple carriers for a couple different reasons. Sometimes they have multiple of the same carrier, and you're like, why would you have multiple of the same one? They do the same thing. Well, sometimes babies have blowouts, or spit up happens, and you
Yeah, I
may
didn't.
need to wash your carrier. And
Yeah.
for my children and my life, Murphy's Law is a strong force in my life. And it would never fail that it's like, okay, we're going to wash the one carrier. It is time. There's been enough dirt and bodily fluids on it. It has to be washed.
Right.
Baby's asleep. It should be good. Put the carrier in the washer, and as soon as it's like completely soaked, baby wakes up and is like, we need to be worn right this very second.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to have more than one, even if it's the same kind, one that's clean, one that's dirty.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of my clients, though, they do have multiple kinds of carriers. They have a ring sling, they have a Mayday like this one. Sometimes they have a buckle carrier, woven wraps, stretchy wraps. There's a whole plethora of different options out there, and they typically have 3 or 4. And I compare these carriers a lot to my shoes. When I'm wanting to just get out and go somewhere real quick, I'm not planning on, taking a full day hike, I grab my flip-flops 9 times out of 10 because that's my quick little go-to shoe. I use it all the time. It works in most every situation. It's just maybe not my first choice when I need a super supportive shoe. My ring sling is kind of like my flip-flop. It goes everywhere with me. I love it. It's my favorite thing ever. Slightly biased. If ring sling's not your thing, it's okay. I promise. You don't have to have one, but it's just one of my favorites. Because it folds in the diaper bag. It can come anywhere with me. It's just one of my favorites, and it fits all. I wouldn't put my 10-year-old in it, but in a quick pinch, if my 6 or 7-year-old were to fall down and hurt himself, we can get back to that car in the ring sling. So it's a versatile carrier for me, like my flip flops are for my feet. But there are days where it's like, hey, I'm going to be out all day walking around. I'm going to go on a hike or something. I want something that's really solid and supportive. For me, that's a buckle carrier or a woven wrap, or a Mayday style carrier. So you have to look at what are the needs that you have when wearing baby? What are baby's needs while being worn? and kind of tailor your carrier choices to that. And then looking at, is this carrier selection only for you, or is it going to be for you and a partner or another caregiver who's going to be helping take care of baby? Those are things to keep in mind as well. And typically, it leads the parents that I help and my clients to having more than one carrier. On average,
Mhm.
it's probably three would be the average amount of carriers most of my clients have.
Yeah, that's an awesome analogy to use shoes as an analogy. That's a good idea. Um, I'm trying to think about if there's any other questions that like I have because I don't see any questions on here.
Oh.
No, but that's good. That means you must have covered things. So um, I don't know, but I'm sure that questions will pop up and hopefully we can kind of keep an eye on it um, on YouTube and answer them if we can or direct them to you. So I guess one question that we should address is like, how do people contact you? How do they find you? All that good stuff.
Well, our primary space that we use is on Facebook. Our website is currently under construction. One of the things of being an volunteer organization is things like the website sometimes fall to the wayside a little. So we are working on our website. It should be up here in the future. I can't give a completely accurate say on when, but we are incredibly active on Facebook. We have a Facebook page. When we start meeting again, we will post all of our events on that Facebook page. So that way anyone can see them. Even if you don't have a Facebook account, you can always go and look at a public Facebook page. When we are regularly meeting, we stick to a pretty strict schedule. We've always done second Tuesday, fourth Thursday of the month, and we try and fit in quarterly Saturday meetings as well. Just kind of depending on weather and the availability of spaces. We
Mhm.
hope to be able to go back to that. We shall see. It just really kind of depends on how the situation goes from here and how
Mhm.
comfortable our locations are with us bringing in families to be very in a rather intimate situation. We can teach you how to baby wear from 6 feet away, but typically we're a tiny bit closer. We're usually, just this far away versus 6 feet, because we like to be able to help you with your carrier and make sure that you're adjusted in a way that is the most comfortable for you and baby. So along with our Facebook page, we have our community Facebook group, and that's where we do the most of our work right now. We are typically pretty quick to reply. We have some amazing caregivers in our group. So you're not only receiving the advice from myself and my co-director, but you're also receiving peer-to-peer advice from other parents who are maybe going through similar situations and trying to wear their children through them that you might be. So we highly encourage joining in there. And we're always open to having people reach out to us through private message. Our email is sanantoniobabywearers@gmail.com. You're welcome to email us at any time. And we try and be as open as we can be in that space.
Awesome. Yeah, so you've got a lot of ways of getting out and meeting up with people, and they're all over town, right? Your meetings,
Yeah. We prior
or
to
you're
the
trying.
shutdown, we met at San Antonio Nurse Midwife's office. She was gracious enough to allow us to use her space, and then we also met on the in San Antonio Birth Doula's office as well. Um, our Saturday meetings, we try and pick a fairly central location, typically 281, 1604, 410 in that area, as close as we can get to downtown without having to pay exorbitant rental fees to be
Mhm.
there.
Yeah.
So we like to partner with the baby wearing dancers of San Antonio and Groove Road, Texas, to
Mhm.
have baby wearing meetups and have fun dancing and get some baby wearing education at the same time. So we can also be found sometimes at their events, which is always a lot of fun. They do a great job.
Yeah, they do. Awesome. Well, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add, but I think that's it.
So I've covered a lot of information. So I think I've gotten to most everything that I had planned. Again, just to emphasize, if feeding in a carrier is one of your goals and it doesn't work out the first time, that's okay. Since I have a little extra time, I'll tell y'all a little bit of a funny story. with my second child. She was 2 weeks old, and I had been teaching people how to baby wear and feeding carriers for almost 2 years at that point. So we were going to go out to I need coffee at 8:40 at night. Pray for me, people. We decided we were going to go out to dinner with me, my father-in-law, my husband, and my 2-year-old, and the newborn. And I was like, I'm going to bring my carrier and I'm going to feed in this carrier and it's going to be amazing. I have this down. I know what I'm doing. I got this. I didn't practice at home at all before I left. Get to the restaurant, and me, baby wearing educator, been at it for a while, newborn, managed to get myself wrapped up between my carrier, my nursing bra, and my shirt, so much so that I had to go to the car and remove everything to be able to get untangled from the mess that I had created for myself. So if it can happen to me and it happens to you, I promise it's normal. It happens to all of us, whether it's your first baby or your fourth baby. Try it. If it doesn't work, don't worry. It's okay. There's always next week. It will all be okay. So that's my funny story with feeding in a carrier for the first time without ever testing the waters before I did it. So the people at the restaurant were wide-eyed about the whole situation. Because of course it's Friday at dinner time.
You know, nobody was there.
So, no one saw anything because I was so incredibly tangled. So practice at home first. It saves you a lot of grief.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Crystal. I know I learned a lot for the future for me. And I know I probably will be reaching out to you like a million times when the time comes for me. But yeah, I'm glad I have you in my back pocket.
Oh, I love sharing baby wearing. It is my favorite thing to do. It is what I've chosen to do in, my volunteer life, my professional life. It is, I know all the things. That's a lie. I don't know all the things, but I know a lot. And yeah, it is one of my absolute favorite things to share with families. And I find it helps them bring a little bit of a sense of normal back to their lives and a sense of what they used to be able to do beforehand before baby came. And it helps them integrate baby into their new lives. It helps them it makes everything feel better. And, babies are meant to be carried. We've seen that throughout history. They're meant to be carried by someone, by a caregiver. And the peace and the ease that brings to your life is really an amazing thing to get to share with people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, well, I guess we'll end it.
All righty.
All right, well, thank you so much. I learned a lot, like I said, and then I hope everything works out, and I hope you stay healthy and your family's healthy and you get yourself some deer. I know it's not deer season, but
Fingers crossed. I won't be baby wearing while hunting this season. I miss doing that with my littlest. So there's pictures on my social media of me like, hey, I'm in the deer blind. I have small child with me. It was one of the coolest experiences. So
that's cool.
I'll be baby wearing while working with the deer that I get to hopefully harvest this year.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. Well, you take care.
Bye. Have a good night.